And then the worst part of it happened. He was so drunk, he stumbled naked from his room to the toilet. Oh hi, thanks for clicking on this video. So I'll get to the story time about my bad Airbnb host in a bit, but for the rest of this intro, just so you know, I usually do travel content where I get to travel around and take epic cinematography, and this is more of a casual laid-back sort of vlog, just to let you guys know what happened and give you some advice so it doesn't happen to you. Alright, enjoy the rest of the video. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Thank you for coming back. I don't know why you came back, but thank you. And if you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. Just join the club. Be one of us. About 2 videos ago, I pointed out the fact that like 80% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed, and me asking people to subscribe actually increased it. So now it's only like 73% of people who watch my videos are not subscribed. So if you're one of those 73% and if you watched a few of my videos already, just go ahead and subscribe, please. It does help me out because, you know, brands only care about numbers. Doing a little bit different of a video today, kind of doing story time and my general sort of advice for when I first moved to Japan and things I wish I had known before. And if I tell you my mistakes, hopefully you guys can learn from them. Not that anyone's probably going to be moving to Japan anytime soon.
How it feels waking up every morning in 2020. Damage report.
But people who already live here can probably relate to that, or if you want to in the future, you could, you know, benefit from this knowledge I've gained. So whenever you move to a new country, I do recommend that if you can't live with like a friend, to live at an Airbnb. And the reason for this is because you can pay like a cheap day-to-day rate without the commitment, get used to the area before you go ahead and sign a contract for an apartment. Now this is the method I took when I came to Japan. I stayed in an Airbnb probably a bit too long, maybe 1 to 2 months. What was good about it was that the host himself lived in the apartment and he rented out the rest of the rooms in the apartment as places for guests to stay. So it was kind of like community, and I could ask him questions. He spoke English and he could help me with the Japanese things because I still don't speak Japanese 2.5 years later for some reason.
Nani the fuck?
And I could set up my bank account, my cell phone. I could set up everything I needed to with his address to begin, which is really good because some Airbnbs, like, they don't have like a mailbox you can check, or like that mailbox is only for the owner. So I do recommend finding like an Airbnb where you just share a room in a house, because then the owners of the house can at least let you check your mail and set up all the legal documents and things you need when you move to a new country. He had really good reviews on Airbnb, and he was like a super host, which means he has many properties, and he was pretty well off. I mean, he had nice cars and he had several properties, but you know, he is a, I don't know, 50-year-old single man, not married. And that could be a red flag, because usually people who get that old who are not married have either like difficult personality, or like they just don't, you know, want that type of traditional lifestyle. But if I could go back in time, I would probably have lived with a married couple instead of just like a guy who owns Airbnbs, because I'll get into details why later. So he had a girlfriend. Maybe she was like, I don't know, 15 years younger than him. She was like a cosmetic sort of saleswoman, and she was trying to sell me, you know, moisturizer and stuff, because I arrived in the winter and my skin was quite dry. So I complained to her like, oh, my skin's dry, help me. And she would give me her, you know, fancy Japanese skincare, which I'll do another video about skincare in the future. Anyway, she was nice, but they ended up breaking up. And pretty nasty breakup. Could hear them yelling and yeah, yada yada, all that. But I need to back up a little bit. So when I first moved to Japan, I was a bit intimidated and I didn't want to come here alone. So I did something a bit like last minute and crazy. I hired a woman from France to be my assistant part-time and to live with me in Japan, because I was like, just don't want to be alone. But now in hindsight, I think being alone is not so scary when you move to a new country, and I think that it caused more problems than good. There was times where her company was a benefit to me, but at the same time, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have hired her, and I wouldn't have hired anyone. So I am a freelancer and I have lots of different clients, and at the time I had a really good 6-month-long contract with the one client who was getting increasingly difficult to deal with online. But I was basically like their full-time social media manager, and I needed her help responding to some of the like Slack messages and calls and just some, little tiny detailed stuff that like isn't like my mind being like used in a intellectual way, but just like my presence of being online on their Slack channel and saying, yeah, that's a good idea. Like, I just wanted her help with that. And I wanted her help to research some things like, blogs or influencers to work with. So the deal was that this young French woman would come live with me in Japan. We would share a room and eventually probably share an apartment together if it went well. And I would give her an iPhone to use for work or her personal needs, because she didn't have much money to like have supplies for herself. And she wouldn't really pay rent the first month, but the following month she would start to pay like a very small amount, like maybe $100 per month, just to help out with food and cost. And I interviewed her, and she seemed like she was beautiful, like model quality. I was like, wow, you could probably come here and model. She knew a little bit of Japanese, so that was useful because she was a little bit of a weeb, I'll be honest, a little bit of a weeaboo, obsessed with anime. And she was like very eager. She was young, but like, I'll work so hard, I'll do anything. Like, she just really wanted to come to Japan. And I wanted to help her make her dream come true. So I was like, okay, well, what do you like? I gave her like the whole outline of like the situation, and she agreed to it. I asked her specifically during the interview, do you have any problems with trying new food, Japanese food? Do you have any like pickiness about eating? And she said no. Mind you, I could only see her face during the interview, not the rest of her. That was a big lie, because, okay, I'm not trying to say that like it's a very serious mental disorder, and people who have it don't usually realize it, and they're delusional about it. And she knew that she was a picky eater, but she just didn't want to tell me because she didn't want to tell me anything negative that might make me say no. And when it comes to being an equal opportunity employer, I should employ anyone, no matter what their, status is or disability or mental problem. But when it comes to me picking a roommate, that's a little bit more personal. So I'm not just hiring someone to help me with my business, I'm hiring someone and also picking a roommate. And I cannot live with picky eaters because I like to try new foods, I like new things. I just don't like picky eaters, like because they're like, I don't like that, ew, it's gross. I'm like, I kind of feel it's rude to like another culture to like say something's gross when it's like their cuisine, their food. But also, couldn't she just like tell me the truth? Like, it would have been a lot easier. I probably would have still hired her, to be honest, but it would have just been better if she told me, yeah, I have a very strict diet. And then I could have said, okay, well then you're going to be responsible for buying your own groceries because I have a very varied diet and I don't have any restrictions. Like, that would have been the conversation. But no, it was like we were supposed to share groceries in a way because like I was helping her live and survive and paying for things, but she only ate specific things, which I wasn't going to eat because that's the only thing she would eat. She was anorexic, like clinically anorexic. When I met her in person, like you could see every bone joint in her body, like through her jeans, which were so big, even though they were probably extra small. Like you could just see that she was totally malnourished and underfed. And she even admitted to me later, like she hasn't had a period in like a year. I'm like, that's really a sign of bad anorexia. And not only that, like her family started messaging me and calling me and like, oh my gosh, she's gonna die, you have to feed her. I'm like, this isn't my problem. Like, this is not my problem. She would only eat like a banana, 1 carrot, half a carrot, 100 grams of rice, and like 1 or 2 eggs a day and chocolate. That was her meal. and it was such a small amount. She was taller than me. I'm pretty tall, and it's sad because she's such like a beautiful woman, like in her face and stuff, and she could be really beautiful, but she's just so bony and like not healthy looking that it takes away from her appearance. Anyways, I have some bad blood with her, but in all, I wish her the best, and I hope that she can recover and just do her own life, do her own thing. Basically, she was really young in her mind. Like, when I was 18, 19 years old, I was pretty mature and I was ready to work and do like work things. But she was like, I don't know, a 10-year-old in like a 19-year-old's body. And she just was like, she had this fantasy of what Japan was, and she came here to live that. And that was really uncomfortable and embarrassing for me. Whenever we'd go out in public, she would just randomly talk to people in Japanese, but like not in a normal way. Like, we would, let's say we're going in the train station, and here is the train ticket man in his room behind the glass wall to help you if you have a ticket problem. And here's the gate, and we walk through the gate, her and I. He says nothing to us, but she turns around, I don't know, 20 feet away or more, and says, "Arigatou gozaimasu," and bows super low to him. Why? Why? It wasn't normal. And then like there was this old man walking with his cat, carrying his cat, probably to the vet or something because it was sick. But she just goes up to the cat and starts touching it, going, "Kawaii!" And I'm like, don't touch someone else's pet. Like, you don't know what's wrong with it. Maybe it's sick. Maybe he's taking it to the doctor. Maybe, you know, it might bite you. Like, he looked bewildered. Like, who is this random tall French girl touching my cat? Anyway, so she wasn't very helpful. Like, I taught her how to help me, but she'd only do like 2 hours of it, and that was like the most she could do. And then she kept taking dangerous jobs on Craigslist. She wanted to be a model, so she would like answer those sketchy Craigslist ads like, "I'll be your manager and take photos of you," but it was just like a creepy guy. She would disappear for like 5 hours to be with a creepy guy. And she was really naive and really naive person, so she didn't realize that men are dangerous for women, and he clearly was just taking advantage of her. He wasn't gonna get her any modeling jobs. He just was a creep. Like, he took her to karaoke, like kissed her on the cheek, trying to hug her. He was just trying to get laid. But she didn't see it that way. In her innocent mind, she's like, "Oh, he's gonna like help me be a man. He's gonna help me be a supermodel in Japan." And I'm like, "No, he's not. He's just trying to get in your pants." And then I had to explain to her like the whole birds of the bees situation, where men are not necessarily genuine or innocent in their intentions. And she's like, "Really?" Like, just totally bewildered at the reality of life. And then not just that, like, our Airbnb host was like flirting with her, and she didn't realize it because she would openly say everything about herself. Like, "Yeah, I'm a virgin." I'm like, "You shouldn't go around telling men you're a virgin. They're gonna want to take that." And then she would be like, "Yeah, I don't have a boyfriend, but blah 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 blah," and just talking a lot. And he was like, "Oh, really?" And he was like a gross 50-year-old perverted man who thought he had a chance with a 19-year-old woman. Her stupidity was high, and I don't have a lot of tolerance for illogical stupidity, so I was getting annoyed. She wasn't good at working. I was paying money, like, more than I meant to for her because she had a weird diet and she was so picky and she wouldn't try new things. I was having trouble with my client because she wasn't helping me the way I hoped she'd help me, and on top of that, like, she was just doing her own thing. Like, some Australian people came to visit the Airbnb, and then she just disappeared for like 2 days with them. Like, she's like, "Yeah, we went and had fun." I'm like, "With what money?" Like, she didn't have any money. She couldn't pay me anything to help with groceries, but she could go have fun with them for 2 days. I'm like, "What do you do?" And she's like, "Oh, they paid for me." Just super naive, and honestly takes advantage of people. So she wasn't like the nicest naive person either. And Even our Airbnb host tried to flirt with me a little bit, but you know, I shut that stuff down pretty fast. He had a drinking problem as well, so our Airbnb host was like drunk every night. So he would come home like slurring, stumbling, basically just not being very like comfortable to live with. And then the worst part of it happened. He was so drunk, he stumbled naked from his room to the toilet, which was in the living room area, like the entry to the toilet was in the living room, and he so I had to see him naked and drunk. I think if you're an Airbnb host, that's probably like one of the worst things you can do to your guest is like walk around naked. It's like harassment and disgusting. And if I was like a family staying with him, like what if my kids saw him naked? Like just totally unprofessional. And like if you can't hold your liquor, don't drink that much, you know? All of our relationships began to sour. Like he was getting annoyed that we lived there so long, and he was just being like really like ready for us to move out. And you know what? I was ready to move out too, because he was kind of rude and drunk and naked and trying to unsuccessfully get in her or my pants. And that is just an uncomfortable situation to live in if you're a woman. I started suggesting to the assistant, like, you should, you know, probably find your own apartment. Like, she was able to get a part-time job because she was just doing her own thing and not helping me. I was like, you know, you have a part-time job now. You can probably get your, like, a share house, like a dorm room. And then she took that really bad. She was insulted, hurt, you know, maybe she even, you know, hated me a little bit, but I didn't want to keep working with her, and she was just costing me money, and I didn't want to live with her because she was so picky and crazy, naive, and like I didn't want to worry about her going out with guys all the time for model shoots where it wasn't innocent, and who knows what would happen to her because she was so naive, and I didn't want to worry about her. Like, she's not my problem. And I told her family who kept messaging me about her anorexia, like, you know, that's not my problem. Like, I'm sorry she has this, but like, I can't fix her, and it's not my job to fix someone, you know? And yeah, so what ended up happening is I have a limit. Like, I'm kind of nice to people who make mistakes, maybe 5-10 times more than most people. But then it starts to get to a point where like I just don't have tolerance anymore. I ended up pointing out everything that was wrong with her because I just snapped, and you know, that wasn't nice, but that's how I felt. I told her, I'm like, you need to give me my phone back, because that was like a work phone. So I was like, you need to figure out your own phone situation. And she like almost tried to steal it. Like, she was trying to leave and move out and get a new apartment. She was just taking her bags and going. And then I'm like, when are you going to give me the phone? And she didn't answer me. I'm like, are you trying to steal my phone? Like, I'm going to sell that, because you sure as hell haven't helped me with any money. And like, she kind of like pushed me, and she's like scared of me and like, get away from me. And I'm like, I just want my phone back. You can't leave with my phone. And she was like really mean about it. And she took my charger for the phone, which was annoying. And then when I asked her to give me a charger back, she ended up putting it on top of a vending machine in a station somewhere, and took a picture and said, oh, you can come get it here. I'm like, why can't you meet me like a decent human being to give me back the charger? It's probably gone now. She's like, just such a nasty person. I moved out a couple days before the end of the whole Airbnb to a new place, but what I think went right is staying at Airbnb in a room in a house is probably a good situation when you move to a new place. Where I was living was not like the most interesting part of Tokyo. It was on the east side in Edogawa, and that area is kind of run down, cheaper, but also like, if I felt in danger anywhere in Tokyo, it would probably be like that kind of area, because there's always like sketchy, weird guys hanging out around the station, especially at nighttime. But all other places that I've lived in or been to in Tokyo, or like Kanagawa or Yokohama, I haven't had that same vibe. In other places, I haven't felt like there's any danger, which is totally opposite of what it says on the internet. So on the internet, it'll say things like the west side of Tokyo is more dangerous because there's more foreigners and young people. Anyways, I just wanted to make coffee and share this story with you. If you're going to move to Japan in the future, or you're just curious like how I got here and what the situation was. Yeah, it only took like, don't live in an Airbnb with an old single man. I recommend if you're a woman, you live with like a female owner or at least a married couple, because that will be safer and less creepy. You won't have to see naked old man butt walking around in the middle of the night all drunk, wondering why he can't realize he's naked. Yeah, well anyways, I'm gonna finish making my coffee. I'll try to edit this video soon. It's not going to be as fancy as my other videos. But thank you for watching. Okay, bye-bye.